Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Nahmadu wa nusalli ala Nabiyyil Kareem. This particular video about adaptive leadership, I'm making it on a very popular demand. Everywhere I go, leaders and CEOs, and a lot of people within the organizations ask me how to become an adaptive leader. And the reason they ask me about this is because I met with almost a fatal accident at the age of 42 and got paralyzed from the neck down. And they asked me, how did I adapt to the changes? How did I come in terms with my new life? What were those steps that I have taken? And how is it that I'm able to move on despite the fact that I'm still paralyzed from the neck down? My hands don't work. I have a little bit of movement in my arms. My legs and my feet don't work. I'm unable to stand. I'm like a rock. Once you put me in this chair, it's the chair that does everything for me. I can't do anything on my own. So there was a big amount of adaptation that was required. Now, when we talk about the adaptation is not a new fact. Change is not a new fact. When we read different literatures, so Confucianism, or if we read the Japanese Zen, or if we read the Buddha philosophy, the Greek philosophy, and the Islamic teachings, we see that change has always been part and parcel of human life. But change has become so accelerated that now we are concentrating on this as if we never knew about the change. A new set of energy is being set on this front, and a lot of organizations are working on that. The other thing is about adaptive leadership. Now, leadership has been part of the human history from the very beginning, but Ron Heifetz actually explored this issue of adaptive leadership in the late 90s and to this day with his colleagues. I'm not going to explore the intellectual frontiers, but what I want to discuss with you is basically how is it that I met with this change. The first and most important thing that I tell people is that you must process this change. If you have seen my videos, I always talk about processing the change, which actually means that we have to appreciate the change. Most of the leaders, we are shoved into the change. I was shoved into the change. This realization of appreciating the change came later. And there are certain things that have become fashion. We have to talk about those jargons within the corporate world, and change is one of them, right? Similarly, we talk about digitalization, we talk about teamwork, we talk about inclusivity. All those things by default, leaders talk about it, but sometimes we don't really appreciate the meanings, the wisdom, and the kind of effort that is required in terms of implementing those. So appreciate the fact that change has happened to you and respect it. Understand the amazing amount of magnificence that is embedded in change with regards to its complexities, with regards to the fears, with regards to the opportunities, and with regards to how to go about dealing with it. Once you understand that, you will tend to have the right mindset dealing with it. Now, what happens is that most of the people either get paranoid by the change, right, when it happens in our personal life, or we become overconfident. We like to become superwoman or a superman in dealing with that change, and we think that we will overcome it in no time. One thing that I tell people is that we have to become very much humble when the change occurs in our life. And we have to understand that we will be dealing with it, but it will require a lot of effort. It will require a lot of energy, and it will require a lot of passion. The other set of people get paranoid and afraid by that change, by the complexity of it, and do not know how to move forward. You need to create a commitment in terms of dealing with that change, that somehow you will be able to overcome that change through a sheer zeal, through a sheer commitment, and that you will be able to overcome it. As you recall, that Darwin argued that it's not the strongest of the species that survive, not the most intelligent one, but it is the one that is the most adaptive to change. What a beautiful concept. And we all have it in our DNA. So that's the most important thing that we need to realize. The first thing in dealing with that change is this ability to understand when we process change, we really need to do an acute diagnostic of ourselves, of our situation. And we have to appreciate the complexity that is embedded in this change. In order to understand the complexity, we must understand the complexity with unfold with the passage of time. But we need to take the first step. What hinders us is the fact that we do not know which way to go. Just take the first step. Whether it's left, whether it's right, whether it's up, whether it's down, no matter which way you will go, it will be the right direction. Lao Tzu once said, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. It's this step that you need to take, which is the most important. And understand that the past experience is a killer to a greater extent. We tend to think in the corporate world that the most experienced we have the better ability to maneuver the organization, or the more experienced we are, we'll be able to overcome the life challenges. But in terms of dealing with that change, that methodology unfortunately does not really work out. The Eastern saying, this Eastern saying, the further one goes, the less one knows. Because we become so rigid in our thinking. In dealing with complexity, you need the flexibility. You need the flexibility and the agility that is required in order to understand it. And in order to do that, you must empty the cup of your experiences. You must take out a lot of things that you have accumulated because they will not lead you anywhere. And you must disaggregate the complex challenge. When you're taking small steps, you are actually disaggregating these challenges. And you have to be in this operational mode with regards to complexity, that you will delete the past experiences and make space for the learning new capabilities based on your future endeavors. That's what I did. Stop comparing the past. We tend to live in the past, and you must have seen it. And you must understand that in dealing with change, you have to let go of things. And those losses have to be understood so that you are not really whining and crying about them. And understand that the new attitude needs to be developed, and the departure from the old culture or attitude will be painful. It's never easy to let go of things. Don't try to avoid change, but take head-on measures. Remember in the beginning I told you that you have to have this commitment to deal with change with a lot of humility. So if you want to adapt, you have to take small and create small modular targets. Don't try to win the battle in one go. It really never works. And move forward with full heart, commitment, and reverence that one day you will prevail, and that the journey is long and a hard one. In this process, you will see that you are developing an experimental mindset and smash your comfort zones. When I had to start learning new things, it was just an immense challenge. My hands not working, you're not able to do a lot of things that I used to do. I was a pilot. I had multiple parachute jumps that I did in the past. I was a rock climber, I told you. I grew up by the Mediterranean, so I was a swimmer. And all of a sudden, everything just changed. And and doctors told me that I will be on a bed for the rest of my life. And you can imagine the kind of uncertainty that it created and how I had to deal with it. And the only way to deal with it was these small steps. And people look at me today and they say, how did you do it? And I tell them that it was just a commitment that no matter what happens, I will continually, start bouncing forward. And there were times, when I bounced back, but that's okay, as long as you keep moving ahead. Don't be afraid, but fail, and fail again. Each failure will let you innovate and provide you with the new wisdom The inner theater of yourself has to be tuned with the extended environment that is outside. And that equilibrium is very, very important. One thing I always tell, and I always do, what I preach, I have to actually do it every day. So this is not a theory, these are the practical steps. I share my experiences and my stories with you because I have to do them on a daily basis. And I hope that these steps, which are very common, we all know, it's the problem is the kind of discipline that you need to create in order to execute them. So continuously learn under pressure and transform incrementally, and understand that flexibility, efficiency, and agility are at the heart of adaptiveness. Without this, you won't be able to move forward. You have to stop, I have to say this again, you have to stop short term, but your focus has to be long and medium term, because the improvements and changes cannot be achieved in the short term with regards to adapting a change. You will see small incremental changes, but these small changes will create an impact over the long term. Another important aspect is that you have to correct the course based on the evolving needs and the future that inspiration that you have for yourself. One of the most difficult thing to do is that you have to remain calm under trying times. And you have to absorb that pressure. And you cannot be emotional all the time. This emotional flexibility, it's at the heart of adaptiveness. Do not push yourself extremely hard, otherwise you will burn out. And you will lose the momentum that you have created for yourself. Sometimes we really want to overachieve things and we lose the patience in the process. I really don't want you to do that. Keep a happy balance. One of the most important aspects of this is that you have to keep a happy balance between your body, mind, and soul on a daily basis. And that is going to be very tough. But believe me, if you have the commitment to adapt, you will make those changes in your daily life. And you ensure that your purpose is your North Star, and that you have to understand it, and that you have to go back to it on a daily basis. Otherwise, you will lose yourself in dealing with this complexity, and also why you need to be adaptive, why you need to be flexible, why you need to change on a daily basis. Why is it that you will be able to prevail? It's this commitment that will keep you going. And one thing that we all do, we want to go back to our old tested things that have worked in our past. Don't go back to your past. Learn from it, but make sure and understand that adaptiveness actually means making changes consistently in your life. And that the old ways cannot come back. At those times, things were much different than what they are now when you're dealing with the complexity itself. I can talk about being adaptive because I had to adapt. Fundamentally, I had to adapt so many things that you cannot even believe. I had to change my whole lifestyle. I started my own consulting firm after my accident. And before that, I was running an organization which had almost 35 million in a customer base in the telecom space. I was a very, very active man, full of life, doing things. And all of a sudden, this particular curve that came in my life changed things dramatically. But I can tell you, the reason I appreciate change is because I cannot thank God enough that I met with this accident and I got paralyzed, because it gave me a whole new perspective. It gave me a whole new purpose. And you will find that within change, you will find not only a new adaptability, but a new sense of purpose. And you will be so joyful in understanding it and so passionate in terms of what you set your eyes on, and hopefully will be able to accomplish it. So I hope I made some sense. If you really like what I said, please do like our video and do share it, because I really want to spread this message of hope, not just for individuals, but for corporates and corporate leaders, that adaptability can be managed and it can be created within ourselves. It's painful, but it is very much possible.